welcome back to my channel. My name is Mackenzie. I just slapped myself in the chest, that's okay. Today, I'm going to tell you my reading goals of 2024. Now last year, I make fun of myself for this, but not really because it doesn't really matter and it's all good. But last year I did make a video where I made a list of 50 books that I wanted to make my TBR for last year to try to motivate myself to read more, because I could feel in the... When did I make that list? I made that list in December of 2022, and I was kind of on a roll for the first 2 months, if I'm being honest. I ended up reading about 12 books off the list at the time. I got rid of the list. Anywho, yeah, I ended up reading a decent amount of the books in the first 2 months, and then my priorities shifted in life. Yeah, it is what it is. Last year was not my year of books, shall I say. It was probably I don't want to say it was my worst reading year, because I did read things that I enjoyed. I just made my favorite books of 2023 video, but I did not prioritize reading by any means. I prioritized lots of other things in my life, which I think is good. I think is very good and okay. But yeah, my goal for this year is to kind of get back into my love of reading. I still loved it last year, but I really want to get immersed in good literature this year, which I feel like was really missing from my life last year. And I want to find a balance between everything that I was doing just in my personal life last year and my reading life. I want to find a balance. That's the goal. But I did learn from my mistakes last year. A 50-book TBR list doesn't work for me, okay? Doesn't work for me. So I made a TBR list for myself this year just to have some semblance of structure, hopefully, and yes, I don't want to say motivation, but I want to read these books, and so I need to kind of kick myself in the butt to read them, okay? Because they're intimidating, you know? Yeah, but I made myself a short TBR list. I think there's 13 or 14 books on this list for this year, and I'm really proud of myself. It's the end of January. It's like mid-January right now, and I've already read 2. So I'm really proud of that. And I've decided that my goal and plan is to pick 2 each month of the year to read. And we'll see where that gets us and what have you. So that's my goal, that's my plan. I've been successful thus far, and we are gonna roll with this, what's it called? Momentum. We're gonna roll with this momentum. Is that a sentence? It is now, it's okay. The first book on this list is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, which I love, by the way. Two YouTubers that I love are Carolyn Marie Reeds and Emmy, of course. Who does not love them? But I know I'm hoping this year to follow their Game of Tomes book club when I feel like it. I know they're reading this for the month of January and February, so I'm planning on taking this with me. I'm going on a trip in February. I'm going to take this with me, and hopefully this will be my plane read there and back, and while I'm there, it's big. It's going to be the only book I take with me, so I'm really going to commit to it, you know what I mean? But I know a lot of people really love this book, so yeah, I'm hoping this story takes my mind and carries me away with it. That's what I'm hoping for. I think it'll be good. This is the famous revenge story, right? I really don't know what else this is about. The Count of Monte Cristo. So that's on this list. It's huge, obviously, so there we go. Next on the list, which is the book that I've already read, is Crime and Punishment, finally. I've read this. I never thought it would happen. I didn't think it would happen. I started reading this last year in what was supposed to be a buddy read, but it didn't. It didn't happen, you know. I don't know if everyone stopped reading it or I stopped reading it or what have you, but I got about 100 pages into it last year, and it just didn't happen again because my brain was in a different place last year. It was not in the book place, really, unfortunately. I hunkered down. I said, this just will not do, and I dedicated myself to this for like a week in this month in January. And boy, did I take some notes on it. Boy, I was really giving myself to this. I was really giving myself to this book, you know? I'll talk about this more in my January wrap up. My star rating for this book was really complicated. I did end up giving it 5 stars. It was not complicated, it was stressful. I didn't know what to give it. 4, 5, 4.5, I don't know. There are definitely flaws with this book, for sure. It is not a perfect book by any means, but it was so philosophically dense. It had so many Christian religious themes and allegories and references to the Bible, the New Testament. I just felt really excited about reading it and everything that it was making me think about. So that's why I gave it 5 stars, because it's like, it's more so about the experience for me, you know what I mean? And I was just so excited to be excited about something really layered and interesting. And I can tell there are things that I was missing with this book. I would love to have someone teach me the many different layers and elements to this book, because I could tell that there was some things that I probably didn't fully understand, but I enjoyed my experience. I really gave myself to it. I'm so proud of myself for finally finishing Crime and Punishment. So yeah. Then we have I will one day, and it will be this year, I will read this book. I have 2 copies. It's the Canterberry Tales. Actually, I have 3 copies, but I have 2 copies in my current home. The Canterberry Tales. I did buy No Fear, the Canterberry Tales, because I thought that it would help push me to read it. I think this is like an abridged version. I actually don't really understand completely. But I bought this beautiful edition, this Penguin Black Spine, at a used bookstore. It's like it's like in great condition. Anyway, Canterbury Tales. That's really all I have to say about that. And I'm so intimidated by this book, but I just want to read it. Because I don't know why, but I just wanted to read it for such a long time. It's like a medieval tale about many different people on this journey, like medieval times. This is, I believe, a translation from the Old English that it was originally written in, but I do have an edition in the original Old English, which is wild. So I'm glad to have these, you know? So, yeah. The Canterbury Tales. It's gonna happen. It is going to happen. Okay? It's going to happen. Next on the list, we have Don Quixote. I've been wanting to read this again for such a long time. I have a feeling I'm really gonna love it. Therefore, I'm nervous to pick it up because I want to love it. We have a quote from Dostoevsky on the back. Profound and powerful, the final and greatest utterance of the human mind, Don Quixote. It's about this guy, and he is riding around and he convinces himself he is a knight. I believe this is because he reads a lot of tales about chivalry and romance and knights and what have you. And so this is where we get the term quixotic, right? Like he convinces himself that his life is like a novel and he's the hero of his own story, which we all are the heroes of our own story, but you know what I mean, more dramatic than that. We have the Divine Comedy. And so this is a bind-up of the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso, and this is translated by John Ciardi, I'm gonna say. I'm nervous to read this because I do have a feeling I'm really gonna love it. I've read bits of it, but I've never read it in full, and I am really looking forward to it. It's about the journeys into the 7 layers of hell. But yeah, now we're on to the shorter book. Again, I've already read one of these. On the list, we have a Hemingway. We have The Sun Also Rises. I love Hemingway. One of his books was on my best books of 2023 list. Did I say that right? One of his books? Yes. A Farewell to Arms is such a beautiful book. I need to reread it. I read that a few years ago. And then we have, what was this other book that I read by him? The one about the fish. The Old Man and the Freaking Sea. The Old Man and the Sea, which is such a beautiful adult fable, is what I like to refer to it as. But I need to read The Sun Also Rises. I don't really even know what this is about exactly. Hemingway's famous first novel tracks the lost generation of the 20s, from the nightclubs of Paris to the bullfighting arenas of Spain. A world-weary journalist who is burdened by a wound acquired in World War I and by his hopeless love for the flamboyantly decadent Lady Brett Ashley. It's a tragic love story, hapless American expatriates drinking, dancing, and chasing their illusions in post-war Europe. And then we have The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I wanted to read this last year really badly. I said I would be mad at myself if I didn't read it last year, but whatever. Here we are now, and everything is fine. So, The Road. I just really want to read Cormac McCarthy. He did unfortunately pass away last year, which is really sad. I guess we're all gonna be there one day. It's the inevitable fate of all of us, unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of people say he's like one of the greatest writers of all time. I've never read any of his books. I have The Road. It's the one I'm most familiar with the title of course. I don't exactly know what this is about. I think it's a father and his son on a walk alone through burned America. It's like post-apocalyptic, I think. And it's supposed to be absolutely tragic and devastating. And I love the font size. Wow, I just noticed that. That's fantastic. But that's The Road. And then the book on the list that I have read, which again I will talk more about in my January wrap-up, but we have Something to Do with Paying Attention by David Foster Wallace. A very short little book by David Foster Wallace. I bought this in the bookstore because it sounded interesting and because it was a super short book by David Foster Wallace, who wrote Infinite Jest, and who his name precedes him, right? I really don't have anything else to say about why I wanted to read this other than it's a book by David Foster Wallace, and I was simply curious to be introduced to his way of thinking and his writing style. And I wanted to start with something super small. I don't know, again, I'll talk about this in my wrap-up, I don't know if I'm interested in continuing with any of his works. Based off what this book says on the inside flap, is that this book was published posthumously, and it was a small section of a larger work that he didn't get to complete before he passed away, which is called The Pale King, which has also been published posthumously. I don't know if this story is included in that larger work, but they published this separately. It's like a completed story within that story, from what I understand. But essentially this is about a boy growing up in the 70s, kind of, and it's about his relationship with his father. But I ended up giving this 3 stars because this was also a lot about the IRS, because he ends up getting a job for the IRS, so it's him talking about how he got there and why the IRS was like important, or like his job. To be completely honest, that is not why I picked up this book. That is not why there was just a lot of information that completely went in one ear and out the other, and I didn't care to read. Like, I wanted to read this for what I enjoyed reading. What I enjoyed about this while I was reading was like the purely human aspect of it. It was a lot about the generation divide. I did not care about the facts of like taxes and all that stuff. So I gave it 3 stars, but I'm really glad that I read it. There you go. Then we have a Steinbeck novel. We have Cannery Row, which again, I really wanted to read last year, but it just wasn't its time. It wasn't these books' time last year, and I really do think books meet you when you need them. Books meet you when you need them and when you're ready for them. Is about, as it says from the back, is about the acceptance of life as it is. It's about a community in Monterey, California, and their interwoven stories of their lives. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. But that's Cannery Row. Also, a book that I said I would be really upset with myself if I didn't read last year. And look at that. I didn't read it last year. But again, it's okay. It's time to shine in 2024. is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I've never read Toni Morrison, and that's a crime, and I need to remedy that, you know? So The Bluest Eye, which is about a young black girl who prays every day for beauty. And to her, beauty is light skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. And I just know this is going to be devastating, and I just need to read Toni Morrison. We have 2 more books on this glorious list. We have a James Baldwin, If Beale Street Could Talk. I read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Such a beautiful book. Really such a beautiful book. I just know James Baldwin is an amazing writer, so I need to read more of his books. I really want to read more of his books. This is the only other one from him I have on my shelves. Again, If Beale Street Could Talk. A 19-year-old girl in love with Fani, a young sculptor who is the father of her child. Yeah. And then I'm assuming it's going to be devastating and extremely sad. So that's If Beale Street Could Talk. Last but not least on my 2024 TBR reading list, we have Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth. Vaguely have an idea of what this book might be about, but I don't know for sure, so we're gonna read the back together. It's a black comedy of manners about vast wealth and a woman who can define herself only through the perceptions of others. New York City, where millions were made in railroads, shipping, land speculation, and banking. In this morally and aesthetically bankrupt world, Lily, age 29, seeks a husband who can satisfy her craving for endless admiration and all the trappings of wealth, until her quest comes to a scandalous end when she is accused of being the mistress of a wealthy man. Exiled from her familiar world of artificial conventions, Lily finds life impossible. I can't wait to read this. I really can't wait to read this. So yes, what books do you really want to read this year? What books did you want to read last year that you didn't get to? Do you still want to read them this year? Please tell me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, morning, evening, noon, or night. Wherever the sun is in your sky. Apparently, I've taken to saying that in every video. I'm here for it, whatever. You have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.